In 2025, prices increased 9% for passengers, while the fares being paid to the driver only increased 3%. Where'd the rest of that growth go? Primarily to the platforms. This piece of data and a lot of other data are in Gridwise's annual mobility report, but I'm going to go through this report as much as I possibly can with you, highlighting some of the key data points. One data point just blew my mind. I can't wait to show you. It's kind of near the end, a little bit of a teaser. Hi, my name is Levi Spires. This is the Tip You in the App Daily Drive podcast. Today's Daily Drive is brought to you by Gridwise. Now, I've been using Gridwise for the last few months, and I'm really happy. It's worked out really well. I've liked the data that they're giving me, and I recommend you check it out. And with all of this data, what are they doing with it? They're producing reports like this. They're letting the industry know and everybody else know, hey, here's what's going on with the apps. This data is really important. Now, let's jump into Gridwise's key findings. They have 8 of them. I'm going to quickly summarize them. Number 1 key finding is that prices increased while the payments to the drivers decreased, and there was a 33% increase of platform fees. Platform fees jumped per trip 33.2%. So that's where the money's going. If you're a driver, passengers are paying more and more and more, but you're not getting more of that. And the money's going to where? The platform fees. Now the platforms will say, hey, it's commercial auto insurance. It's a big piece of that, especially here in upstate New York where I live. It's a huge piece of it. But of course, these companies have invested billions of dollars and they need to repay those investors. And so they're trying to increase their profitability. If there's one thing to take away that's probably the most obvious, but at least it's now here in writing, is this part of this data. The second piece of data, which is contrarian or at least conflicting with this, is that passengers don't want to pay anymore. Most of them are really price sensitive now. And if fares continue to increase, they're probably going to look for alternatives. The third finding, near and dear to my heart, tips increased to drivers, but delivery drivers' tips have decreased. Finding number 4 is that rideshare bonuses have increased. Finding number 5 is that delivery drivers are working record hours, but their pay hasn't really increased. Finding number 6 is that more people are paying for premium rides, Comfort, Uber Black, Uber XXL. Finding number 7 is that the minimum pay requirements in New York City have drastically decreased tips to drivers. And finding number 8 is that the cities where autonomous cars are operating is cutting into driver rides. If you're a driver in those cities, you're earning less money because you're getting less ride opportunities. Page 5 goes over some definitions of gig workers. You're probably going to hear me say Uber drivers as kind of like a summary of all gig workers. Uber drivers are just a portion of this, but it's my natural tendency to say Uber driver when I mean Lyft, DoorDash, or some other thing. Page 6 puts some data on who drivers are. I love this type of data. Let's take a look at a couple of key things here. Number 1, most drivers, 75% give or take, are over the age of 35, which seems like gig work because it's so low paying. It's something that younger people would do, but it's mostly not that, but 35 and older are doing it. Most people are doing food delivery, and then another 36% are doing rideshare. Grocery follows next, package, and then even some other non-gig work. Most of them are men. Most people are part-time. 30% have a bachelor's degree or higher. Most people have 1 to 2 years or less than a year. Only 8% have more than 6 years. On the next page 7, it goes over some more data. But basically, the number one thing that drivers are looking for is flexible work. That's by far the number one thing that everybody enjoys about gig work. Now, page 8, let's sit on this one for a second. Basically, 75% of all gig workers are sticking with one app. Only 25% multi-app. That's a big thing because here's what happens. When you lock yourself into one app, you may get good at that one app, but you're closing doors. You're losing leverage is another way to say it. When you hypothetically go out on a night and have DoorDash, Uber Eats, Uber, Lyft have all these apps open. When rides and offers come in, you have more options to choose the most profitable ride. On page 9, they show the loyalty, and DoorDash has a 78% loyalty. That means most DoorDash drivers just do DoorDash, maybe for good reason, bad reason. On page 10, they show if your primary app is one thing, what's the other app that you do? I do primarily Uber, a little bit of Lyft, a little bit of Uber Eats, and a little bit of DoorDash. This has me pegged to exactly who I am. Page 11 is a summary of the data we're about to go over. Rideshare driver prices per trip have reached an all-time high at $15.03. That probably means drivers are trying to get longer trips. Rideshare driver per hour earnings peaked in 2022. Right now it's sitting around $23 per hour. My peak pay was right around 2023, 2024. On page 14, tip per trip is at $1.58 for rideshare drivers. That means if you took all of your tips at the end of the day and divide them up by the number of trips that you did, that would be your tip per trip average. It's a function of drivers getting access to higher tiers and taking longer trips. Pages 15 and 16 show that bonuses are also on the increase for drivers. Drivers are completing fewer trips than they ever have at 1.67 trips per hour. That's another indicator that makes me think that drivers are trying to take longer trips. Drivers are spending more time behind the wheel, an average of 157 hours every quarter, which is less than what I think I do. I think I'm more like about 300, but it's still a lot of hours. Page 19 is that visual representation of the 9% increase to passengers, but only a 3% increase in fares paid to the driver. Delivery drivers are earning $1,506 every single quarter on average. And those delivery drivers are working an average of 102 hours to make those $1,506, which seems like $15 an hour. Is that about right? Page 23, the average order is $9 for a delivery driver. And you can see this slow decline. And there you go, $14.66. That's what the average delivery driver is making. The average tip is $4.16 per delivery. Delivery drivers are sitting parked 41% of the time. They have a 59% utilization rate. It's a peak from what it was before, but still only 59%. Page 27 has data. If you're an Uber driver or Amazon Flex, you're making the most amount of money. The fastest weekly earnings are Favor, Shipt, and Uber Eats, and Lyft and GoPuff are in the decline. Page 28 is just a visual representation, a table of all the different platforms and how much they're working and who's making the most amount per hour. Look at that big jump in Shipt, 19%. Pages 29 and 30 go over non-mobility work, places like jobs like TaskRabbit. Man, you can get paid. If you can do those type of things, there's some money to be made. Page 31 is a visual representation showing that delivery drivers make a lot of money per delivery in tips relative to drivers. Delivery drivers are doing a little over $4 per delivery in tips, where Uber rideshare drivers are doing things like, I think, $1.50 every single trip in tips. On page 32, it just shows that the higher the premium of the vehicle or the higher the expense, like XXL, you're just going to get bigger tip. Where if you're doing Uber X shared, you're barely going to get any tips. Interestingly, 65% of drivers say they get tips because they're on time. I think tips come from the types of trips that you take, the higher quality of the car, if you're going to the airport, those type of things. If you're generally pretty nice and you have a good conversation with the passenger, you're going to get a tip. But I could see it for delivery. Getting the food to somebody's door as quickly as possible is probably the best way to get a tip. Jumping to page 38 and 39, this is important if you're a driver. Short rides up to 3 miles represent almost a third of all of the rides, yet they only represent 18% of the pay. Trips that are 12 miles or longer represent 19% of the total trips. However, they represent almost 40% of the pay. That means if you're taking a longer trip, more than 12 miles, that's where majority of your pay is going to come from. On page 40, 30% of all the miles that are driven are idle. You're not active on a trip. P1 means you have the app on and you're looking for a ride, but you don't have a ride. Deadhead miles. In AV cities where autonomous cars are, they're seeing a 3.6% decline in utilization. Nationwide, the average is only a 3% decline in utilization. So clearly, autonomous cars are taking rides from human drivers. Trips per hour in AV cities are declining double than what the national average is. Autonomous cars are just taking drivers' jobs. Page 43 shows that grocery shopping and retail shopping are growing on DoorDash and other platforms. Page 45 is a visual representation of prices increasing for passengers. And Lyft is 14% cheaper than Uber. I can see that. And that's why those fares, at least in my city, Lyft is just not paying. Lyft hasn't increased their prices as much as Uber, yet their fees have increased 64%. And now Lyft's platform fee is right at 15%, almost equal to Uber's. So Gridwise broke down why platform fees increased. First, it says like prices have risen faster than driver earnings at 9% versus 3%. Second is the ride mix has shifted toward products that carry higher platform fees, such as Comfort, XL, Priority. Third, platform fee levels increased year over year. Average platform fees per trip rose from $4.17 to $5.20 on Uber and $2.33 to $3.82 on Lyft. Other factors may also be at work, including promotions, localized pricing tests. I love this chart on page 50 where it shows how each of the ride types grew. Comfort, 10%, XL, 1%, shared is down 18%. I don't think anybody wants to do a shared ride. Priority rides, 319%. Passengers really want the drivers to show up quickly, and that kind of goes back to that getting the tip. That's pretty interesting. Black increased, Lux increased, eco-friendly down, Black SUV up, Wait and Save increased, XXL 341% increase. Not a bad idea to get a large vehicle. I love this graphic on page 51. Wait and Save prices increased 45%, whereas XXL declined 16%. It's fascinating to me. On page 52, Black SUV and Black and Lux rides per mile remain the priciest despite rideshare price changes. So again, if you order an Uber Black SUV, you're only going to be paying the most. Page 54 has some metrics that really need us to dive into when it comes to AV rollouts. Nationwide, trips per hour are down 2.6%. Utilization is down 3%. However, look at Los Angeles. Your trips per hour are down 9%, and your utilization is down 7.8%. And the interesting thing when it comes to hourly gross pay, down 3% in Los Angeles, whereas nationwide, pay is up 1.8%. It's not every single AV city where we're seeing these changes. Atlanta, a new city with new AV, you can see that per trip base pay is up 9%. So Atlanta's doing better. But again, AV rollout hasn't been that much. Take a look at Phoenix, just down across the board. So AVs are making an impact. Pages 55 and 56 talk about Prop 22 in California and some of the pay changes that happened in New York City and Seattle. Now let's get to the good stuff. On page 58, milestones. What days are the busiest? Halloween was the busiest, a 23% increase in volume during that day. And I ended up earning $800 something on Halloween, whereas Christmas was the slowest day. Interesting. I still don't see New Year's on this list. I kept looking. December 27th, Saturday is down. You would think New Year's would be the busiest, but July 3rd, the day before Independence Day, a high level of volume. I really recommend you take a look at this page and plan what days you're going to Uber drive this year based upon this. On page 59, they talk about a new top 5 emerges for 2025. Harry Reid International Airport in Las Vegas holds onto its position as the number 1 airport for rideshare driver activity in 2025. So 4%. Hartsfield, Dallas, Chicago, and then Boston Logan. On page 60, a great chart showing when are the busiest travel days. Sunday, April 27th was massive, whereas Christmas Day, the slowest. Now, page 61, my favorite page of them all. So as I was diving through all of this data, trying to analyze everything, take a look at this. Somebody on Curry made $2,850, the highest paying task. I have no idea what that was, but down there in Colorado Springs. And then the highest paying, the longest ride was 590 miles from New Jersey all the way out to Dayton, Ohio. But that wasn't that got me. This is the highest tip in rideshare, $211.94. Uber from Ithaca to Newark, New Jersey, 226 miles. That number is not right. Let me tell you, that's my trip. Supposedly, my trip with a tip of $211 was the highest tip in rideshare, according to Gridwise in 2025. But that wasn't the full tip. I'll give you the quick what happened on this trip. I picked up somebody at like 6:30 in the morning, and they were going to New York City, but they were flying out of 3 different airports. They had flights out of Newark, LaGuardia, and JFK. They weren't sure which airport they're going to fly out of. It was an Uber Comfort, 5-star passenger, really nice person. She is an agent for a celebrity, and the celebrity wasn't sure what airport they were going to fly out of, and that was the confusion. When we arrived after the really great ride, she gave me like 70 something dollars in cash. She said, I tried to tip you, but the tip didn't go through. And then I got a $211 tip. So it was actually like more like $280 tip is what I got. It was so good. Yeah, that happened literally March 9th. And today is that was March 9th of last year. So it's now March 10th of this year. Yeah, that was the coolest data I think I've ever seen in my life. Just to see, I was like, why that trip looks so familiar to me. And I went through, and I'll show you the trip here to prove that was my trip. How cool is that? The delivery busiest days are Mother's Day, Valentine's Day, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. Top restaurants. I don't know if that matters too much. Let's see here. Top convenience stores, top retail chains, PetSmart, Petco. So ordering things for your pet. I've done a few of those. Some delivery milestones on page 66. The highest tip in food delivery, $450. Smoked me. That's much better than mine. The highest tip in grocery delivery, $250. The highest tip in retail for DoorDash, it was a food and wine thing, $361. Page 68 gets into basically that 60% of passengers are saying they're going to consider other options if prices continue to increase. And no surprise here, people are saying nighttime is the most dangerous. Obviously, more so on page 70, it says, I would feel safe riding alone in a fully autonomous rideshare vehicle. Strongly agree, 19%. Somewhat agree, 28%. Neither agree nor disagree, 19%. Only 32% of people disagree. We tend to think that people won't adopt into autonomous cars. And I think that ship has long sailed. People will prefer autonomous cars for a lot of reasons over drivers. On page 71, they go over some more of this data. I trust autonomous vehicles to make safe driving decisions. 34% of people disagree, but majority of people agree. Listen to this data point. Compared to traditional rideshare with a human driver, how much would you be willing to pay for a fully autonomous rideshare car? I would only use it if it costs less, 22%. I would pay about the same, 34%. I'd be willing to pay slightly more, 13%. I'd be willing to pay significantly more, 2%. I would not use an autonomous rideshare regardless of price, 28%. So that's interesting. 34, 13, to 50% of people would be willing to pay more for a car without a human driver. Page 73 goes over how people use food delivery. I've only done it one time in my entire life, yet there are people doing it multiple times every single week, getting food delivery. Page 74 goes over the summary of the findings. I'm not going to rehash it all. Page 75, Brandon, Susan, and Simona. Great work. This is a really good report. Congratulations. Page 76 proves their methodology, so how they found out their data. Worker panel, 1 billion tasks, $11 billion in earnings aggregated, 11 billion miles, 98% correlation with public company reporting on various metrics. So this is really, really good data. I'm not going to go over any more of this. Basically, it's just a kind of a big summary. So Gridwise, great report. Really good. I kind of rushed through all of that data. Again, the link to this report is in the description. I want to give you my thoughts. Okay. Number one thing, obviously, we're making less as drivers than what the price increases represent. Passengers are paying more, and they're not realizing most of that is going to the apps. And that's frustrating. It is what it is. But a report like this is getting the word out, videos like this. And if that conversation comes up with your passenger, hey, it comes up. The next lesson learned for me is I got to do a better job of multi-apping. That gives me leverage. Normally, when I say I'm going to go drive, I almost always turn on Uber. Rarely do I turn on other platforms, but rarely do I have any of them or all of them open at the same time. Multi-apping is the best way for you as a driver to increase your revenue and your profitability per hour. Passengers, I don't know what to tell you, but prices are going to continue to go up. But if I was a passenger, and I don't really take a lot of Ubers, but if I was a passenger, I would try to order an Uber Comfort and try to find ways to get a better service out of that. Ordering just a basic UberX, I think the quality is just not what it used to be. Investors, and again, I'm not an investor type of person or whatever. This is definitely not advice, but I'm always kind of thinking we're close to peak Uber. In fact, I made a video almost a year ago to the day saying that we're at peak Uber, and the stock price hasn't really changed. It's still sitting around $70. It peaked a lot last year, went up to 100 something, but now it's back down to 70. And I don't know the other apps, what their shares are. I only know about Uber. But I think Uber continues to increase pricing, providing the bare minimum of customer service, and the car and driver quality is not matching that price increase. And that's a tough place for a business to be in. So again, shout out to Gridwise. Hey, if you go through this data, I'll put a lot of this data in the description. If you're a driver, passenger, or investor type person, let me know what you think about this. Thank you again, Gridwise, for sending me this. I really appreciate it. And drivers, I hope you're safe, healthy, and happy. And I want you to know that I'm cheering for you. Be well. Bye.